They always say, what are you willing to trade your life for? And I realized at the time what I was doing was for the wrong reasons. And what I did was every night, and I had my goal card of I knew how much money I was making at CTV at the time. And my goal at that time was to just replace my income. And I would just stare at that thing every single night. And then I would be hit with bits of inspiration because that's how the subconscious works. If you give it a question and you ask the right question, an answer will reveal itself.
Everyone's telling you to hustle harder. But what if that's actually working against you? I have noticed that when I stopped fighting and start flowing, when I get my energy right, everything gets easier. And I made a free training about this whole energy thing because it's been a complete game changer for me. Check it out in the description below. Welcome back to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Shahid Durrani, the show where we dive into the minds of high-performing entrepreneurs, innovators, world-class leaders. If you're someone who's always looking to grow, push limits, and think and do bigger, you're in the right place. Today we have with us Leslie Gordon Christie. Leslie is a mindset and personal development coach, as well as a founder of Buff Nation, an online community dedicated to empowering women over 40 through personal development, fitness, and nutrition. She is also a certified consultant with Proctor Gallagher Institute and a culinary nutritionist specialist, a certified personal trainer, and a lifestyle coach. Welcome to our show, Leslie.
Thank you. It is so wonderful to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. It's great. And I see that part about you being a certified consultant with Proctor Gallagher. Now, that is very special to me. So I wanted to start by asking you this question. You studied closely the framework of Proctor Gallagher Institute and Bob Proctor's teachings. How has Bob's life work personally changed your life? Maybe even in ways you didn't expect at first?
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that work. I actually came upon his work before it was Proctor Gallagher. It was called Life Success Consulting. And this was almost 2 decades ago. And I was in the news media world where I was a reporter and I was an anchor. And I was just like, okay, something's not right. I want to go to the next level of my career. And I remember going for a coach. And at that point, I think it was The Secret. Remember the movie The Secret, right? And I saw Bob in it. And I was like, I need to study with this man. I didn't know who he was. And that's how I got connected with Life Success Consulting. 20 years ago, I went and I was trained by them in Florida. And I've been living by those principles for 2 decades. And it has changed every single area of my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about everything I talk about with it.
That's what happens, right? When you experience the transformations, you just can't stop talking about it. And then other people might think that they're self-promo or they're just trying to get something. But I think it's different from, for example, I can speak for myself. I really feel passionate about it. I feel really good about this information. So I want to share it. I want to talk about it. I hold back now. I do stop myself because in a lot of environments, people don't want to hear it at times. So I refrain from it. But it is so important to share this with more people, because if we plant the seeds, there'll be a day that they'll realize, wait a minute, I might want to try it this way. This way is not working.
That's right. And Bob's even said it himself. He's not invented anything new. He's compiled the thoughts of great thinkers from hundreds and hundreds of years ago and put it together in a cohesive way. Like, I truly believe that you're going to find the person that speaks to you, but wherever the information comes from and there's a click and there's a change in your life, life, you absolutely want to inspire others because you feel what it's done for your life. And it's just natural that you want to share.
Yeah, no, great, Leslie. So, you move from broadcasting into personal development coaching. Can you share what inspired this shift and any of that experience that you gained in the media help you with coaching?
Yeah. So what inspired the shift was when I started to go through the Proctor Gallagher program. Back then it was Life Success. I realized that they always say, what are you willing to trade your life for? And I realized at the time what I was doing was for the wrong reasons. And so when you have a vision that you're passionate about and you're connecting on it all levels, then you've got something propelling you forward. And I had always loved teaching fitness classes. It's actually how I put myself through journalism. And at the time I was taking the program, I had done like the 1-year program. Then I took the program to be a coach myself. And I thought I got this crazy idea that I was going to start this fitness class, but I was going to include the mindset piece. And I want to say crazy idea because at the time, this is 20 years ago, nobody was talking about this stuff. Like it was just starting to gain popularity. So I started this program just on the side. Like I would anchor the news during the day and I would go to work and then I'd rush home from work and I'd go to my class. And I think I had 3 people to start and we would do the class together. And then we'd sit down in a circle and we'd talk. I'd do some of the Proctor Gallagher teachings. And then it just started to gain momentum, right? It was the time of my life when I had 2 little ones and the clients coming to me also had young kids. And it was a way for women to get their focus back on themselves. And so it started to grow. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I can actually not go back to work. And so when I had my second child, I went on mat leave and I did what Bob said, and you get your goal and you basically have faith that it's going to work. Okay. And so I did, and I did the reps in the middle. We talked about before we started to record the importance of doing the reps. You got to have the vision.
Yes.
You have to do the work. But then I resigned from my very well-paying job. It was a steady job. It was full-time. My parents thought I was crazy, but I stopped the job. And at the same time, I had nobody registered to my classes other than maybe 10 people. And a reporter contacted me to do a story on me. And he did the story, and it was the 27th of December. And by the 2nd of January, every single one of my programs were sold out. And what I did was every night I had on my goal card. And I had my goal card of I knew how much money I was making at CTV at the time. And my goal at that time was to just replace my income. So I had calculated how many people I'd need in each class, how many different locations. And I would just stare at that thing every single night. And then I would be hit with bits of inspiration because that's how the subconscious works. If you give it a question and you ask the right question, an answer will reveal itself. Then I just went from there. And thank goodness that reporter did the story because that's what changed it. And every newspapers around the country picked up this story on a fluke. Who even knew it was news anchor leaves her job to start fitness business? And my classes were full. Yeah. So to answer your question was a lot of the skills that I learned through broadcasting of talking to people, highlighting success stories, getting in front of people talking actually helped me make that transition to entrepreneur. Yeah. So I answered your question. I'm way out there, but it is a cool little story about the goal card.
Yeah, stories are really important when you're answering something. So I appreciate that you went ahead and shared that information because at the end of the day, when we hear someone speak, how we really listen is actually from the story, the connecting story. It's a very important, crucial part of getting your message across. But about your journey, about this shift, you must have experienced a lot of doubt and worry when you made that decision. Obviously, being a student of this material, you knew what to do, but did you still have trouble? And if you did, what did you do to help you elevate?
Yeah, I was really focused on where I was going, but I remember that just when I was about to go back after my maternity leave, like I was off on my maternity leave. At that point, it was a year and I had some time. It's busy with a baby at home, but my off time, I would think of my business plan, think about what I was going to do. And I was all set to do it. And then I got cold feet. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back to my job. And my husband is so supportive and he's also into this material. He's not a certified consultant, but he's been on this journey with me as well. And he was like, you are not going back. And lo and behold, around that time, they called me, the news director at the time, and he said, hey, we've changed your position at the station. We no longer want you to do this segment. We're going to have you first segment reporting on news. And I was like, okay, I am not doing that. This is my sign. This was like the universe's way of saying, you've asked for it. Now you have to go forward and do it. because I knew that if I went back in that position, I just wouldn't be happy. So I went forward with it and I had to do it. So that was a little bit of cold feet at the beginning. And that will happen when we set a goal, right? When we set a goal and we're boldly going towards it, we call it in Proctor Gallagher the terror barrier. We're going to be hit with such fear. We just want to throw in the towel. But that's actually the opportunity for growth. And the only way through, as we know, is you just have to keep going. And so I had that terror barrier early on. And then as I kept going through it, I actually found that if I was experiencing overwhelm or anxiousness, I needed to dive deeper into my personal development so I understood how we functioned with energy flowing to us. We impress upon it what we want. I needed to understand that at a greater level so I would have faith in the process. And that's what I tell my clients to do. If you lean into your vision, if you lean into the material and the work, it's going to take away, not all of it, but it's going to make it a lot easier for you to go through that fear.
And the more you work and the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. And creating that complete faith, it literally moves mountains because there's levels of, you're right, there's levels of that faith. And when we say complete, is literally you expect nothing else but to achieve something. It's that complete faith, not blind faith, but it's just complete faith, just knowing, just understanding. And that's what you gain from this daily study. And it changes individuals' lives, the ones that do the reps that we were talking about, do the work. It just does it in a way with step-by-step format, right? So that step-by-step format makes it more easier than trying to figure it out on YouTube. And it's a blessing that it came into my life. And of course, it sounds like it has for you as well. And your husband. And it's so important when people do it as a family because it's a lifestyle shift. It's not just a new cool idea. It's something that you have to be supporting each other. So it's, obviously when everybody's in it together, it amplifies the energies in the house. The revenues that are coming into that house, it shifts because of that collective effort or the collective shift in feelings. And the emotional state is a powerhouse because when you start feeling into your goal and having that faith that is true in the present moment, that's how much faith you have. The struggle ends, the neediness ends, the lack ends because you are in that feeling of achievement. And then you start noticing things show up, people, circumstances. When I talk to other podcast hosts, they ask you, so what's your strategy of getting guests on the show? I go, I don't have one. And it seems very ignorant on their part, like on my part for them, seeing inwards that, oh, what do you mean you don't plan kind of thing. But I do all that, but reverse it, meaning that I feel a certain way and that's my focus. My inner world is how I feel in each moment. In the present moment is the crucial part. It's my focus. And then whatever comes, I jump on it. Like you're supposed to
when you're
act
in
on it, sense of urgency.
You're in alignment and then you trust what comes your way. Yeah, that's why the vision is important because sometimes, often, most of the time, people go after what they think they want without the vision and then they attract difference. I get what you're saying about with the guests just flow because you focus on how you feel after the end result. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And I always mention this guy's name. He was a guest on a show because it stuck with me. His name stuck with me and what he said stuck with me. And I feel it's so true. It resonated. But he said that he's a really famous painter, artist in New York, David Drubin, I believe it is. Sorry, David, if I said it wrong, the last name. So he does a lot of fantastic work. You can Google him too. And he was a guest on the show, so you just have to go to the previous episode. But he was saying, all I really focus on is the garden. I don't chase butterflies anymore.
Wow.
All I pay my attention is to the garden, and I just water the seeds, I water the flowers, I garden, I just take care of that, and I leave everything else to nature, and I just allow the butterflies to come to me. I don't need to chase. And that is so true in what we do.
That's really good. That's beautiful. Yeah, said.
Yeah. So what unique challenges do 40 plus women have that they can get the help they need in Buff Nation?
It's a self-image thing. And so that's why adding in the mindset component is really big because a lot of times
it's huge.
The world talks about how over 40 hormones, menopause, it's over, weight gain. And so that's really a strong I guess it's community paradigm, a worldwide paradigm that we're trying to switch and build a new image of how you want to show up as. Who do you want to show up as? How do you want to feel? And so when someone joins the community, there's really two ways. You can do it through our online fitness program where you're going to get a little bit of mindset. And then we have the personal development where it's all in mindset. But any program you join, we got mindset in there because it's so big. But when it comes to fitness, often we're thinking of all the reasons and all the things we don't want to see, all the things we don't like about our bodies, all the things we can't do anymore. And we know how the subconscious works and the reticular activating system works. Basically, what you focus on grows. And so if you head into whether it's a weight release program or a nutrition protocol with the idea of this image of yourself as unfit, unlazy, unable to stick with things, that's exactly what's going to come out of the experience. So first and foremost, we get to build a phenomenal self-image script of who you want to show up as a mother, as a daughter, as a manager, as a speaker. That's got to be really clear. And we've got to get that burned into the subconscious. So you start to take a new direction. And when you start to take a new direction, then automatically you want to take care of your health. You want to really lean into the kinds of foods that you're eating. You want to make sure you're getting self-care and going to bed early, visualization, gratitude, all of those things help counter some of the cortisol. The world, right, there's some stress there. So cortisol goes up. And with women, cortisol makes all other hormonal issues worse. But if we can bring cortisol down and we can instead replace all the unknowns and frustration with a clear vision of who you want to show up as, it's really powerful for this stage.
Very powerful. It's very powerful. And you mentioned an important aspect, but I feel mindset comes to everything because that's the engine. If you go to a program where they're getting you into that shape, they're doing the exercise, teaching you all the concept, the techniques, what to eat, what not to eat, but your self-image is still of someone who's unhealthy or overweight. You can do all those reps and everything, and you might get a result, but they're usually temporary. Or it could be experts with programs, for example, that emphasize on the strategy or the program to gain the results that the individual is looking for their client without focusing on the self-image, without focusing on the subconscious mind. What needs to be done for that strategy, the energy, the effort, the work, the consistency, the love, the passion, all that stuff that goes into that action. If it's missing, for example, or if it's the opposite way, it could hamper the results on that. And you'll see a lot of people complain about programs, but it's not the program, it's just the individual. Just have to shift and learn how to make these shifts as a tool. Then you can come across any situation, any program, and make it work because you're different.
And it's so true. And the one limiting belief that I'm really helping women with now, meaning the one thing that's holding them back that I'm finding in my community, is this notion of not putting themselves first. So everything else is so important. And if you hold that limiting belief in your subconscious mind, even if you start something and your intentions are to finish it, if you are putting everybody ahead of you, something is always going to come and you're going to have to put that ahead of your progress. So one of the things I get our clients to do as soon as they come in is they've got an affirmation that they put on their phone. I'm learning to prioritize my worth. And I get them to put it everywhere, whether it's on their mirror, they've got it on their screensaver, they write it out, because number one is you've got to see your worth, the time, the financial investment, the energy in order to show up. That's a really big one. And I'm noticing in this age group, it's one that we're trying to get back, because for so many years, the focus has been on kids and it's been on everything else and husband. And now it's like, you got to make yourself a priority. So that's something that if anyone's listening and you can relate to that, a little statement to really counter that limiting belief that you have can be so powerful.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you so much. Is there any other tip or strategy that you can share that someone maybe that is listening or watching us right now could start following as soon as now?
Yeah, I think you got to get your goals in front of you every single day. So before you start anything, before you even think about signing up for anything, you want to go to who do I want to be and what do I want to get out of this? And once you get that goal there, you start to look at it even for a day, 2 days, 3 days, the solution is going to come your way. You're going to attract it to you once you get that idea crystal clear in your mind. And then once you start, it's about looking at that every single day. Like I go back to the story of me sitting there. I can remember I'm sitting in the tub. I'm like holding this card. You have to look at your goals, where you're going every single day.
Yeah.
Or even if you just put them aside for a day or two, it's easy to get off track. Your paradigm
Oh,
is
yeah.
really strong, right? And so in
Yeah.
order to stay on top of it, you got to stay on top of like where you're going. Yeah. I'd say
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
biggest one. The
Keeping
biggest
it.
piece. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just keeping it with you, some form of reminder. And I have a lot of trouble with that. I have a lot of trouble with many of the things that we teach. And that's why it makes us more helpful to others, because we've been there and done that, right? It's
Yes.
just, that's
We've
what
been through the
mentorship
struggle.
is. Yeah, the struggle is there. It's obvious because you're shifting from one way of being to another way of being. For example, I'm just talking quite broadly here, but it's a lack-based being and then an abundant being. There's a big, huge difference. It's like generational shifts, and creating that repetitiveness of the goal is super important. But my old paradigm wouldn't let me. Like I would have it, I would just leave it on a dressing table kind of thing, right? I would carry it. But then eventually I started doing it more and more because I started listening, because there's a part of what we coach on or mentor is that the consistency, right? You have to keep doing it. So I kept hearing that, right? From our community. It said, you got to keep doing it. So then I started pushing myself, and I did it. And it started gaining a life of its own. There was this power behind it where I started feeling like it's achievable. Actually, it's just like having a glass of milk when I want it. And that's when the shift starts happening. Any feedback on that? Like when that shift happens, when you start feeling like this is actually already mine, and that your energy shifts from lack, neediness, I want to, dude, I got this.
Yeah. Bob would always say, write something on a card. And even if you don't believe it, if you look at it enough, you will believe it.
I love Bob, man. He's awesome. Dude, bless him.
What you are talking about is so relatable, because you're right. If you put something on that card that seems so far away, on those days you're not feeling great, because we go through ups and downs of life, you're not going to feel like looking at it. However, like you said, when you keep showing up and doing it, eventually the break is going to happen and it's going to be easier. So I'll often start with ladies who it's very difficult for them to visualize anything other than where they currently are. And that's absolutely understandable, but we'll go through the motion anyway, and we'll go through the practice, and eventually we'll start with 3 minutes. We'll set a timer, 3 minutes, or even just a minute off the top. Eventually, if you are consistent, and that's where, it's all about discipline. You do have to have that to get things going. I truly believe that. But I believe also of handing it over to a higher power, that help, asking for some help. And I think that's really powerful. If you're struggling with something, you can't do it all on your own. You got to open it up. And when you do, that's when you can get that helping hand to get you to where you need to look at that every single day and just ask.
Ask is the key word. And it's funny, it is very similar to how asking the right questions will get you the right answers and guidance. It's very similar to ChatGPT prompts. Like if you're going to utilize ChatGPT or AI, you got to have the right prompts.
You got to know how to communicate, and then you're going to get the right answer. So if you ask a stupid prompt, if you put in a stupid prompt, you get a stupid response. But if you ask a really good prompt, you're going to get a great response. That is a lesson right there. There we go.
Thank you, Leslie.
I love that.
Great. Well, can you share any tips for anybody that might be looking to create a community? What would your advice be? Or if you had to start a new community from fresh, not having any of these contacts and just having to start fresh, what would be the first few things you would do to make sure it's going to be successful?
I think I would get clear on what kind of community I wanted to create. I actually teach this. I teach at our college here, and I teach this, and I work with students. And every time I start class, I show them Newton's cradle. Newton's cradle is like the little ball that hits the other balls. And I say, what is this? And they don't know. And then I'll say, it's the law of cause and effect. And they'll say, what's that? And I say, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And you want to use this when you're building your social media or you're building a community. What you put in is going to be what you get back. So you can't set up a community and expect people to come. You got to give to the community. You've got to create coherence cohesiveness. You've got to share stories and insights. Then that will grow. But if you're not getting the result in any area, and I think we know with this in business, what are we not putting in and what do we need to put more of? I think it's a really powerful. So I show that Newton's cradle, and by the end of the course, after 15 weeks, they're like, yes, it's Newton's cradle. We get it.
Yeah, it's funny. I always meant to get that from Amazon and I keep forgetting. And it's funny, every time I remember, it's always in a place where I can't do anything. Is I'm driving or I'm busy. Like right now, I can't. I'm recording and I want to get one of those because there's such the easiest way to explain law of cause and effect to people.
Yeah. So asking that question,
it's visual.
Yes, it is, because it is what you put in is what you're going to, and that's not just the action you take. Those are the seeds that you plant. So again, if you're wanting to grow something and you want more abundance in your life, you cannot do that with lack mindset. You have to watch the thoughts you're thinking. And it's the thoughts you're thinking when no one else is listening and you're by yourself that create your results. And so if you're talking yourself out of success, you've got to, again, I would turn it over to a higher power and ask for help, because you're just recreating what you're telling yourself.
Yeah, it's becoming infused with the present moment and all the contents in it, especially what the thoughts are coming up, the triggers, what is causing it. Feel into them, right? Do not try to run away from them, but feel into them. Those are the ones that are holding you back that you can replace, just like any code in the software. Human being, you just have to find what's holding you back, and there's a way to replace it. And then you wake up a new world with that new idea as being part of you, like you were born with it. But
the resistance
it is beautiful, this whole process. Right? And we could talk about this forever. I appreciate you today. I appreciate you coming on the show. It was great to meet a fellow consultant, especially doing this kind of work. It's very special to understand from a guy that was a firefighter, drinking beer at the bars, not having any direction, not showing up to work, being late, sick days, all that stuff, right? To what he created. And truly, the base foundation was always love for other human beings. And that's like the one thing that I gained from the program, is the love for others. It's just so obvious, so important, which goes with the law of cause and effect. Is the more you do for others, the more you get.
It's beautiful.